but we've never given ourselves a moment to pause to really think about, like, wait a minute, I've been wearing this identity for too long. Like, can I just let it rest and be with myself instead of freaking out in survival? Like, can I just be with myself? Can I just escape into a place where I'm in solitude and recalibrate? It's mandatory to come back home, to remember yourself, to remember where you begin and where others end, and vice versa, so you can keep going in the direction that your soul has been asking you to, instead of copying and pasting every year to match the next. Hey soul babes, welcome to the Essence Podcast. I'm your host, Riss, and in this space, consider me your intuitive bestie here, giving you the tools, knowledge, and wisdom you need to reconnect back to your essence, and also remember that you are a unique soul on your own unique journey. And I'm here as that guide, as that bestie, helping you rediscover that when you are your own greatest case study, you begin to stop looking outside of yourself, you begin to turn that gaze inward, and you start creating a life that truly reflects your truth and your authenticity. So in this week's episode, I'm going to be getting into talking about labels and the different hats that we wear. This has been a very big topic of conversation, not only in my life, but I found it to be relatable speaking with my mom the other day, and we shared how labels can get the best of us, that we can be really fixated and stuck on one label or making one choice or identifying ourselves in one way, and we forget that we are multi-dimensional beings. Like, we have so much more to offer, but we are so fixated on one way of thinking, one way of being. We're gonna also just see how we can strip away that label. There's this time in this space where winter calls, where as intuitive beings, as artists, we are asked by our spirit to come back home. So this is what we're gonna be diving into. So grab your tea, grab your crystals, and let's begin.
In your divine essence you shine. In your divine essence you thrive. I'm your host, Riss, and you're listening to Essence Podcast.
Labels. It's something that we notice. It's something that we define. It's something that we use as affirmations. But then it's something that we become too attached to. Something that we sort of can't see ourselves without. And that's when we have to take a step back and look at how much we're wearing that label, how much we are identifying ourselves with that persona. I mentioned how we are in the midst of winter, and we just had a whole New Year's celebration. We just welcomed in 2026 back in the beginning of January. So time has passed, where we've started to feel the feels of what we may actually be working through just for the moment. I really do feel like it's like tying up loose ends. That's what 2025, the end of it, the beginning of 2026 has been about. Tying up loose ends, starting to navigate, making your vision boards, starting the journey with experiences, and building upon that momentum. But through that fine line of ending and beginning, there's gotta be a pause in between, right? There's a beginning and an ending. It's almost like taking a breath in, and there's a subtle pause at the top before we exhale out. And I think what a lot of us miss is the pause between the beginning and the end and the beginning per se in this matter of like ending 2025 and moving into 2026. We forget about the pause. And that pause is what helps us release ourselves from the mundane reality, the mundane world of copy and paste. The pause is what gets us to feel the magic and to get clear on how we are getting to those intentions that we are creating for 2026, how we are getting to actually manifest what we see on our vision board. And the pause itself has been talking a lot to me. I've been in this place of having to decide whether I want to continue feeding my projects and pushing hard on my entrepreneurship, or pivoting and getting another job and like getting more money and more of this flow going. So there's like this fine line of like, where do I put my energy? Who do I show up for? Like, how do I continue taking the steps towards it? And all I kept hearing throughout these questions in my head was Spirit telling me to come back home. Basically, pause. Coming back home in a sense that home is spirit. Home is the surrender, the creativity, that subtle play. And as a healer, as a entrepreneur, and as a DJ and a podcast host, like these are all labels that I'm sharing with you. These are all ways that I identify myself. And to continue feeding those containers, as well as making a living, I feel like I need to know it fast. I need to know those steps really fast so I can move on to the next and start picking up the momentum. When they aren't really picking up momentum, especially during like winter, everything slows down. And it slows down for a reason. Not only does it slow down because we connect more to our family, but we also connect more to ourselves. We connect more to who we are and what Spirit actually wants from us, because we may see one thing, we may see a little tiny speck of that vision, but Spirit is the one that gave us this vision. Spirit is the one that gave us this spark in our heart to feel like this is right, this is it. And we only know it's possible because we are just that in tune with that vision, with that spark. But again, when it comes to actually putting the practice into play, sometimes we don't know just yet. And when we don't know just yet, that means to pause. That means to step back and revisit home within ourselves. And home for me has been connecting in nature. There's this park that I go to. It's like a soccer field park that's like a 7-minute bike ride away. It's not even that far. And before I left, I was kind of feeling hesitant to go. Like I was like, do I really leave behind what I have on my agenda, which was creating a podcast episode, which was DJing, which was getting ready for work later on. I making dinner, all these lists of like what I need to do and prepare for before I can even have this time to come home. And I was also feeling like worry, like what if something happens? What if I don't make it to the park? Something dangerous. Like the mind itself likes to worry. And, it keeps us safe. So actually, the ego is a part of that, like keeping us safe and making sure we're protected. And when the ego is so fixated on one thing, and, usually that is survival, it can stop us in our tracks. So I was like, it was a tug of war moment of like getting my bike situated, putting air in my tire, and prepping for this little bike ride to the park. Meanwhile, having all these like, but what ifs? What if this happens? What if that? And I'm like in my head having a whole conversation. Like, we've been to this park multiple times. We know that every time we go there, like it's like a sanctuary. It's a sacred place. And we haven't been there in so long. It's calling us back. So I finally listened to my own soul, my own spirit, and I rode to the park. And what do you know? Going to the park, it really did bring me back to balance. I get to talk to the tree that I sit under. It's like a shaded tree. I listen to the wind blowing, and I come back to the subtlety of what life has to offer. And for me, that felt like home. It is home. Spirit speaks to us in different ways, so home for others and for yourself, we all have different ways of coming back to home. We have different ways that we know that when we go to this place, it becomes a sacred sanctuary, becomes a place where we feel okay to let go, where we feel okay to express. And like I said, I've had many great moments of liberation in this park, in this soccer field. Every time I go there, I do a cartwheel. I do 3 cartwheels. And this all began during my healing process when I was coming back to my inner child. I was afraid of doing cartwheels in public because I was, number one, judging myself for being like an older person doing a cartwheel. That's childish. Also, what came through my head was people are watching. Like, what if you mess up? In this park, in that moment, me doing those cartwheels helped liberate myself to be able to be myself in a public setting. And this public setting was like, again, there's nobody at this park. It's just me, myself, and I, and in the trees and the grass, and maybe a person walking their dog here and there, but it's never at like a big show going on. And so this park in itself, like what I'm sharing, it just shows that it has so much meaning to it. And for me, that is home. And I've had moments like this in other places. I've ventured out into Malibu and I watch the sunrise. I go to coffee shops by myself and get to sit in solitude reading or writing or listening to music. I have multiple times where I've painted outside and just words that felt like they wanted to spill out of my heart. I've had multiple times where I even colored with colored pencils and played the piano. And those were sweet spots of coming back home to spirit, sweet spots of coming back home to the soul. And I made those breadcrumbs along the way. So if I ever want to revisit spirit, I revisit what I've created already. And that's the beautiful thing about the pause, right? It doesn't last long, but it's just enough to keep it nice and sweet. This tender spot where you can take a moment, take a deep breath, pause before you make a decision, before you make a leap or your next move. And also it gives you the potential to meet it halfway. You might even just synchronistically stumble upon your next, like myself, like your next big workplace you're going to work at, where it's actually going to give you a much more abundance and money flow. You also may meet a future friend at an event that you so happen to think about attending or somebody inviting you to, all because you decided to take a moment of pause. And moment of pauses, they don't actually just exist in wintertime. They exist throughout the quarter of like the year. There's always going to be some type of pause. And if you are intuitive, if you are an emotional creature just like myself, you definitely are being asked to take more pauses. You're being asked to come back home to spirit more often. You're being asked to go to these sacred spaces that you've created with yourself a lot more. Sometimes they might seem like moments, or maybe it's like a whole week of you coming back home to yourself, either at that same place or in different places. And for me, I do feel like it's been day 3 that I've been coming back home, and that has been the park. That's my biggest coming back home to spirit moment. But even before that, I was, what else did I do? Yesterday, I made a delicious meal. I started working on my macrame. The day before that, I did a yoni steam. And these subtle moments they seem like self-care. They also can be seen as creative moments, but those are soul moments. Those are me remembering to take care of myself, remembering to give myself grace. And these soul moments give you the nutrients you need, give you the clarity you need on which label you would like to water next, which hat would you like to wear next. Because if we over-identify ourselves with one label Or maybe we have so many that we're switching throughout the day. And then when we're told to pause, when we're asked to pause, because Spirit's not going to be like, I'm telling you. It's like very subtle. Like, can you take a pause? Can you come back to yourself? When we're being asked to by our soul, we can feel like a tug of war is happening. We can feel like, oh, but I have to get this done. But I have to do this. Like, I have to clean the whole house before I can actually relax. Like, it's all these habitual patterns that we're starting to like tell ourselves to get ourselves out of coming back home. And I've been reading Woman Who Ran with the Wolves. This is where I'm also getting this beautiful insight from, because at the park I pulled an oracle message. Basically, I love getting books, right? And like opening the book to a page and then reading that and soaking in what the message is saying. And to return back home to self came from Woman Who Ran with the Wolves. The author Clarissa Pinkola Estes, my beautiful, what do you call her? Ooh, yes, my beautiful guide. I feel like Clarissa Pinkola Estes is my guide. That book has so much wisdom. And my mom's been asking me to find my guide. And I feel like she's one of them. She's a guide that helps me understand and remember to take it slow, take it easy, and also helps me remember that as an intuitive being, as a woman, there's so much mystery. There's so much power that lies within us. There's so much that culture, that society throws on us, that makes us hide, that tells us that rest isn't needed, like it's for the weak, or you can rest when you're dead. Like all these things that to keep you being a worker, a workaholic, and keeping your mind focused on the money, keeping your mind focused on survival. So when it comes back to coming home to yourself, it's like, how do I get there? Like we lose the road to self. We lose the momentum of what our heart is sharing. What are we even doing this for again? Like, why did we start this? When we have these questions, when we lose that, when we're frustrated, these are return moments. That means go back to your sacred spot, to your sacred solitude moments where you can recommune with your essence, with your spirit. And from there, take what you need. Give what you need. So if you need more energy to sustain you, take it. All these places in nature are wanting to hold you. They're wanting to work with you and help activate you. So like the beach, the forest, anywhere around you where there's trees, your backyard, anywhere there is fertile soil, where there is soil that is growing life, where there's soil that is holding the roots of a tree, of a rose, of plants, whatever it may be, that is life force, universal life force. And it is going to help you come back, sustain you. And while you're at it too, you can also give it out, let it out, right? I have all these different questions, right? I have all these different ways of like, okay, I've been having confusion. I've been seeing like, do I choose this? Do I choose that? Like, how do I move? How do I groove? Like, how do I make these decisions? Like, what needs more of my attention? What needs less of my attention? I have all these questions and I just give them to the tree that I'm at the soccer fields. That's what I did today. I was like, help me answer these questions. I brought my notebook and I started writing out. And one of the beautiful, clear messages that I received was, I don't have to choose. Like, actually, both can coexist. Like, I am going to get a better job that's sustainable, but I am going to have my own entrepreneurial business. Like, both are valid, both are real, and both will happen in due time. So no need to rush, but they both exist. You're not going crazy and you don't have to choose either or, and you don't have to make sacrifices, and you don't have to follow this mundane pattern of what you've created before, fearing that it won't work again. Or, as an entrepreneur, as an artist, we can make something and then it kind of fails, and then we're kind of like, how do we show up for this again? Like, how do we get that momentum going? Doesn't have to just be for an artist, but this is like also for our health. Like, how do we start eating right again? How do we start moving again? Like, committing ourselves again. And also for anything else, it's always like, how can we hop back on and give ourselves that grace to show up again? And then also knowing that, survival is on the other side. Not only is it intuitively happening where we're creating and expressing, but there's also survival. Survival's part of the process. So making money is always going to be a concern, right? Like making enough to support and sustain the dream, support and sustain your life, and to make a living and have fun with it. It is possible to work at a place where it can fill you up, fill up your soul, give you the right tools you need to start creating what you want. So it's a matter of allowing yourself to believe that is true for you, but also understanding that you being yourself and you sitting with your soul helps guide you to your next place. Instead of you forcing. I kind of forced and panicked before Real Roots while I was applying. I was applying out of survival. I was applying out of like, quick, I need a job. So I was like, what's the first thing that like I can think of that I would be great at? And I was like, well, a wellness type of job. And I was like putting in applications to like studios and to wellness centers, and they weren't really feeling like they were going to fill me up. It just felt like it would be like, okay, I think I could work here. I think I could do something here. And I remember going to one of the interviews at a wellness studio, and I looked at the girls who were already working there, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I would fit in this place, but I'm willing to give it a try. And I remember that I showed up for an interview and I was being hopeful and open, but I knew in my heart that this wasn't going to be it. So it did bring me a little bit of survival of like, oh, if this isn't it, then I have to like scavenger hunt for some more. But that gateway of searching, even though it wasn't in that direction that I was going in, it helped feed the line of content being shown to me. So like my email list and social media showing me what I was actually going to pivot into. And that so happened to be Real Roots. So what I'm sharing here is that if you stay in that alignment, if you stay in that momentum of like, you can receive this, putting one foot in front of the other, showing up for what you want to see differently in your life, you start to change that momentum. You start to become what you're seeking. And then it moves in your direction. It moves in your will. And it's all because you just show up for it. You show up for it to happen. And to pivot now back to winter time now, it is very necessary to take this time to reflect and to see where you want to go next, and letting yourself be fed soul food, letting yourself be fed food for thought, whether that be through podcasts or audiobooks or physical books, and also like yummy conversations with like-minded souls that who are feeling the same way and how to navigate. Let those be your anchors throughout this transition, and take your time with it, because honestly, I really do feel like the new year, it doesn't necessarily start until the end of winter. I feel like New Year's is really similar to the Chinese New Year. I do feel like they have something very much on how I like to see New Year's being, that it's not in the middle of winter. There's so much we're unpacking, so much we're unraveling and going through. And when we're not able, again, to see our labels, to take them off, like take off those masks, give ourselves like this internal time to reflect, we start to get scrambled. But we've never given ourselves a moment to pause to really think about, like, wait a minute, I've been wearing this identity for too long. Like, can I just let it rest and be with myself instead of freaking out in survival? Like, can I just be with myself? Can I just escape into a place where I'm in solitude and recalibrate? It really shouldn't be an escape. It should be just mandatory. It's mandatory to come back home, to remember yourself, to remember where you begin and where others end, and vice versa. So you can keep going in the direction that your soul has been asking you to, instead of copying and pasting every year to match the next. And maybe you are making slow progress and slow changes, and usually that's what happens, but there are quantum leaps you can take. There are moments of like big realizations and epiphanies that could happen when you are in your essence, when you are coming back home to yourself, when you are feeding your spirit and your soul, and you're communing with earth, with Mama Gaia, going out into whatever place that feels sacred to you, asking those questions. I'm telling you, once I asked those questions of like, how do I navigate this? Like, I was giving it all the like ways that I would like ask this question, all the nervousness that's been popping up and anxiety, how I would write it in my journal. I said it out loud and I put my feet on the ground and I let it go, because I know that spirit receiving this, that the Mama Gaia receiving this, understands my worry, understands what I'm feeling, and is going to help me, and did help me anchor in to my truth, anchor into coming back home and being quiet and subtle with it. Because when there's too much noise, or when there's too much of this loudness going on, our soul gets covered up. The very subtle voice of our soul gets so mixed with words and feelings of other people around us that we forget and we can't hear what we're saying. We feel like one thing of inspiration comes in our ear and then is out the other. So in order for it to stick, in order for us to actually make those quantum leaps, returning back to center is one of the greatest ways you can do so. So I hope this message finds you well, and that you are able to just remove the label, remove the hat for a moment, just a moment in time, so you can come back to your own true version of who you really want to be. I did want to also mention that I am co-hosting a circle with my mom called Sacred Circle. I haven't really announced it with anyone just yet. It's been in the works of having a few women who are like-minded join, and also a few women who are new to spirituality join. My mom and I have opened up this sacred circle together because we know that it is needed and necessary to transmute certain things that we're going through. To come back home to self is number one, and honoring our soul, honoring our truth, and giving great inspiration and reflections with everybody. It's a free circle. All that is asked is you being present with yourself, you being open and vulnerable, and loving your spirit, loving your soul, and wanting to feed your soul. Those are like really the only guidelines, really. And we honor journaling. So journaling is a big thing that we honor, basically, because it allows us to flush out what is not needed. So the little junk food that we take in throughout our reality and our day, we put that onto a journal, and then we come into the sacred circle feeling a lot more whole and ready to transmute whatever needs to be let go of, and uplifting our soul and our spirit. And that is essentially what it is. It's kind of like church a little, but not really. It has the essence of being, church in a way that is about community and honoring spirit. And what we call it here is that sacred circle. It honors the spirit, alchemy, and all the great magic that lives within us. So I hope this message finds you well, soul babe. And if you would like to hear more about being in your essence, be sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Essence of Riss. And if you would like to hear more podcast episodes, you can find it on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And I'll see you in the next one, soul babes. Bye for now.